I suspect in 1941, I don't know if people thought they were better off than they were 4 years ago, or in 1861, what people thought. But I know this, when the Republic was threatened, people picked up arms and answered the call, or when 1965, in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement, I think people decided they want to take matters in their own hands and create a better country. And that's what I hope we do here in the next 2 weeks.
The Democrats are freaking out about this, as of course they are resorting to some really strange and weird tactics here. A CNN panelist came out and said if white people are not voting for Kamala Harris, they should be, quote, held accountable for not doing so. What? There's another commentator, Dem strategist, Carville, that came out and is literally telling males of color that they will be arrested if Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States. Yes, absolutely unhinged rants from these individuals, just highlighting what I see as very desperate people resorting to some very desperate measures. Let's play a little bit of the CNN clip and then respond to it, because it does seem like the corporate media's favorite candidate, Kamala Harris, is absolutely getting beat viciously in the polls, and this is how they're reacting to it.
Last night, this is the first time since he was in Pittsburgh, and invoked the potential of sexism in his appeal to black men to support the vice president. Angela, should there be a course correction? Because there was so much backlash to that framework, was it a mistake for the former president to say what he did or to say it publicly? What was your assessment of what we heard from former President Obama?
Poor Barack Obama, they probably got him in the Diddy tapes. He's out there being like, black guys, please vote for Kamala. And the black guys are saying, nope, that's not going to happen. Cliff, you have some interesting perspectives on this. We're going to go to you in a little bit, but let's play the rest of this clip here because this reaction is really dumb.
You know, I think that it's wonderful that President Obama is out hitting the trail for democracy, frankly. And what I think is a mistake is to let white folks escape the accountability that they must face for not showing up to save democracy themselves. Like, they want to get mad at presidential candidates, right, when they don't wear a flag lapel pin or they don't see you pledging allegiance to the flag. That's what they want to get upset about. Now, the face of patriotism to them looks like trying to tear down the Capitol in a terrorist attack on January 6, 2021. So the responsibility of saving democracy should be on the largest demographic in this country. That is white men and white women. I don't want to see a women's march with pussy hats come January if something doesn't go right. What I want to see is for them to march themselves to the polls, including today.
Yeah, you hear that, whiteys? Crackers, you better be accountable for not voting for Kamala, or else I don't know what. But that was a ridiculous claim there, as of course they have the same things that they're running on, J6 and women's rights. Nothing else.
I think most people were lied
other
to,
than shaming people and attacking them for not believing in their cult.
I mean, think about it. Last time was like, you're not black if you don't vote for Biden. And now like this, it seems like they just repeat the same playbook. It's constantly like putting people down. Like, if you don't vote, you're blah, 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 blah.
And the irony here, we got to save democracy.
Oh, yeah.
You're not really saving democracy by, preventing primaries, ousting presidents of the United States, and putting in people there last minute, very undemocratically, as this Biden administration has, of course, violated the law, in my opinion, many times, especially with the DOJ, with the larger political prosecution of a lot of their political opponents that has been happening within the last few years. So, yeah. Save me the larger kind of crocodile tears there, and I don't think you really care about democracy at all.
I think they got away with it in 2020 because it was, kind of so fresh off. Just they dealt with Trump for 4 years, and all of a sudden it was, hey, this guy is the devil, he's a devil. They've been saying it now. What's it been? 12 years, right? I mean, 2014 he was everybody's favorite guy. Mm-hmm. Right? Then he gets in political life. He becomes a problem, a challenge to the status quo. But you're right. I mean, look at all their talking points: threat to democracy, against women's rights, and J6. And I just think so many people, after a while, you tune it out. Right? At a certain point, it's like, look, can we talk about, like, hey, putting food on the table? Can we talk about not paying double the price for gas? And I hate even saying those things because it sounds like a political talking point, but they're not even saying those things because they can't.
No.
And so they're all in on making sure that this is a referendum on Trump, yet the person they chose to replace without getting any votes is the current vice president. So how do you distance yourself from what is going on?
Her constant, like every tour, every interview, she's like, we got to turn the page. Bitch, you are the page. And if we turn it, that's an endorsement for Donald Trump. Like, I don't understand who writes her speeches, but these people, I mean, they don't come across as smart.
No.
Is it just me? Like, how do you use that phrase? Turn the page.
It's not just smart. I think the number one thing that alternative media has also created is we can see authenticity, right? Normal people can watch all of this content. You can hear different things, and you're not just getting the 30-second clip at night from MSNBC telling you what to think. That's why I think people like J.D. Vance, a lot of people had outrage when he was picked. You know, oh, there were better people, this or that. I actually really like him. I think because of the authenticity, you know, you might disagree on certain policies. I agree with him on a lot of policies.
Yeah.
But the authenticity, I think, that matters to folks a lot more that are outside of the political bubbles. When he talks about his story of being raised in a drug-ridden community, I'm from outside of Philadelphia. I grew up in a very similar town. There's a lot of great, hardworking people, but fentanyl has beat the hell out of our town. And so I think that there's just these things of authenticity. Then you look at Harris. You look at Walls. Do they connect with anybody?
No.
Does anybody get excited like that guy or
They
that
seem
girl
fraudulent.
represents me?
And J.D. Vance, I didn't like him either. And then I watched the vice president debate, and I was like, well, actually, I kind of like this dude. And now he's on Theo Vaughn. I was listening earlier today. He's pretty relatable.
I didn't like him either. When he was picked, I was like, oh, why? And then I watched the same debate. I was like, oh, I actually like him.
Let me tell you a quick story about him. So I'm at the Florida CPAC 2021. Okay, he's a candidate. He's not even the nominee yet. And we're at the breakfast, like, because we're both speaking in the afternoon. And I had no idea who he was. I mean, I knew of him, but never met him. And he comes in and he's by himself, no staff. He's not being paraded around. He's not puppeted like a lot of these politicians, both Republicans and Democrats. But anyway, he comes over. And the guy I was with, Anthony Sabatini, was like, hey, you know, you want to sit down? He's like, yeah, I got no one to eat with. Right. And just the conversation, like, it was very different from any conversation with all these, you know, very uppity politicians. He's not a country club guy. He's not some guy that was
That's about to change.
Scripted.
If it hasn't already.
But I think that matters to so many of the people that Trump needs. He needs those blue collar voters that either won't show up or they're typically like the old school Democrats. Well, my parents were Democrat. I'm going to vote Democrat. This is going to create that political shift that Trump needs to win.
Well, they say RFK admitted to turning down the VP. If you saw the interview, did you see the interview? Mm-hmm. And I mean, look, J.D. Vance, they're saying is Peter Thiel's boy. I haven't done the research on that. I don't know if you.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
That concerned me a little bit.
That did raise a flag to me.
Yeah.
But he's a likable dude. He's swearing. I was just listening to the interview before we came on. He's dropping F-bombs. I mean, it's really interesting.
Well, Alex
that's
Jones
how you win me over, for
swears
sure.
by him. Alex Jones says that he did his own kind of sort of vetting, and then he likes J.D. Vance, and he trusts him. So I like Alex Jones. I trust him on this particular
That's
matter.
an endorsement right there.
And yeah, if there's ever a person that passes the Illuminati check.
Well, he's going to be a major problem for the Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if they win, this is going to be. I mean, he will be the nominee in 28.
You don't think RFK Tulsi might try to run too?
Well, Trump might run for a third term, but that's for another day.
Vivek's probably going to try to run too as well.
Well,
so.
Vivek would be J.D. Vance's VP probably. He's only 39 years old, right?
They're both from Ohio.
Oh,
it's a problem. I think I think Vivek becomes the governor.
They
or
can
the
move.
senator. I think he takes his Vance's seat. They got to fill it. Yeah. So if he becomes VP, they got to fill that Senate seat. Nobody's been talking about that.
But what about Trump's cabinet? Then he won't do both.
No, you're right. So there's going to have to be an option. But I think, if we can get him in the Senate, I mean, he is a lightning rod.
A lot of people are asking him from Ohio, are saying, hey, are you going to take that position? Like, to Vivek, we really want you there. So
but he's also looking for a position within Trump's White House.
Right.
So he's also trying to be a part of his administration.
But he didn't deny it. He didn't deny the affiliation with Ohio as a position.
They're also asking him to run for governor, right? But in politics, capital is having options, right? So he's going to keep all options open and see where he lands.
Where would you want to have him?
That's
in a
good
perfect
question.
world.
That's a good question.
I mean, I'd like to see him as the borders are.
Oh, okay.
I think he's just such a great communicator. I think whatever the number one issue of the administration is, let's say when Trump gets in, I think you want Vivek doing a lot of your, I don't want to say just spokesman type stuff, because I think he's higher than that. He's cabinet level. But I think you don't want to just toss him away somewhere. You know, it's almost like what the Democrats did when they thought that Buttigieg was their shining boy, right? And then they just kind of gave him this spot, and he's horrendous, and he's incompetent. But I'd really like to make sure that Vivek is doing something that has some oomph, and that's either, to me, you know, senator, governor, or some sort of role where it's not just, you know, a title.
I like that. I think the border is great for him. I think senator, governor, they're all great spots. And
I think I want to see him a part of Trump's administration personally. I think that would be the better fit, the better bang for your buck. I mean, sorry for the people of Ohio, but it's Ohio.
I think he would be great as
there's
like
a lot
her
of things we need. Trump has a bad hiring record, and I think Vivek would be a good hire. From my opinion, from my personal interactions with him and the times that I've spent with him, I think he is a legitimate person from everything that I've experienced.
He's on record saying, someone asked him the question, he said, whatever Trump wants me to do. He said, be in the cabinet or run for...
He needs to be the speaker. He needs to be the one who's like, out, not the speaker of the House. I mean, like the press guy. He needs to be the one answering the questions. He's great on his feet. I don't think you're going to find...
Well, Luke, I hadn't thought about that I do want him in the room when Trump's trying to make some of these decisions about personnel and how do we actually... I mean, heck, maybe he partners up with Elon. You know, to cut down some of this
afuera
crap.
the government. Let's go.
Trim the government, baby.
Afuera.
Well, it'll be interesting to see because I think either way, the Democrats are not going to be happy. I'm going to continue on this larger kind of conversation because I think they're worth talking about. We got another super chat that kind of relates to this from Mako7790, who's asking if we should prepare for a violent situation if Trump wins, and if so, how do we prepare for it? Well, I think first of all, we should be doing everything in our power to avoid any kind of larger escalation, any kind of violent situation. But I think it is also fair to criticize the corporate media for radicalizing a lot of people, especially a lot of people who are usually emotionally unstable. If you look at the larger kind of statistics amongst the left, liberal women and liberal men have some of the lowest overall satisfaction and happiness in life. If you look at mental health problems, overwhelmingly a huge problem on the left, specifically amongst young women and specifically also amongst a lot of young men, and a lot of which usually correlate with left-wing liberal policies. And I think there's a correlation there that is absolutely worth exploring and looking into, specifically why there is such a mental health crisis amongst the left. So I think this is something serious, and I think the comments from MSNBC here do not help the conversation that we're dealing with, as of course this is something that I queued up previously beforehand. Let's play the clip right now.
And, you know, the other question is, were you better off 4 years ago? Are you going to be better off in a penitentiary 4 years from now, or still having the right of free speech and the right of political dissent? Because that's literally what's on the ballot. And I suspect in 1941, I don't know if people thought they were better off than they were 4 years ago, or in 1861, what people thought. But I know this. When the Republic was threatened, people picked up arms and answered the call. Or you know, when the 1965, in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement, I think people decided they want to take matters in their own hands and create a better country. And that's what I hope we do here in the next 2 weeks.
What frickin', sorry. What absolutely reckless, idiotic,
the rage and Cajun.
stupid comments.
He's got to go back to, have you guys seen Road Trip? He's got to go back to his roles on comedy movies.
But no, this is absolutely dangerous. This is
old
absolutely
man, what the old man saying?
James Carville, yeah.
He's talking about voting for Kamala. He's talking with extremely violent rhetoric that we don't need right now. Like we are in a situation that's not very good for America. And to have these comments is really not reassuring to what is going to be happening on November 5th. What do you guys?
Well, I think, look, why do you think they tried to kill the president? I mean, you know, when you go after Trump, it's like, yeah, we all say it. But if you call a guy and you say the enemy must be defeated and the threat must be taken out, I just think it's wild because I think it's funny how Democrats say this stuff. They get away with it, and they're somehow the morally superior party and the people that are trying to save the democracy. And yet the Republicans aren't doing it, and somehow they're trying to label them. I mean, the gaslighting from the left this cycle, I don't think I've ever seen anything where They are trying to make Trump out to be and the Republicans out to be what they are. And I just think that that is wild. And I honestly, I just don't think they're getting away with it.
I think they are getting away with it because nobody's really. I mean, yes, we're all calling them out, but I mean, the left doesn't call themselves out. They're not like, this is ridiculous. Why are you saying this? And to answer Luke's question from earlier, I'm also not really worried if Trump wins about, I'm more worried if Kamala wins, to be honest. I'm a little concerned.
I think either way, we're facing a very difficult situation in this country. Financially, I think also spiritually, more importantly, mentally. The mental health crisis is just going to be exacerbated after November 5th. There's going to be half of the country reeling and dealing with some significant issues mentally that are going to be very difficult for them to deal with. And there's not a lot of kind of off-ramps. There's not a lot of avenues in our society. Free speech is important to, of course, get rid of a lot of these kind of radicalization, crazy people that absolutely have lost their mind. But again, the corporate media using this rhetoric, and we know the rhetoric is only going to heat up from them after November 5th, especially if they lose. Even if they win, they're still going to heat up the rhetoric because now they're in a position of power. And as we've seen with that power, they usually wield it in very kind of demanding and strong-willed kind of ways where a lot of the people who stand in their way are usually crushed, prosecuted, punished, audited, investigated, and in many times sent to jail. So this is kind of a big important situation that I think is worth paying attention to, and I think these individuals and I think MSNBC needs to be called out for a lot of this reckless rhetoric right now.
Yeah, and I think it's not just who wins or loses, it's what happens, right? And by the way, if you think Trump winning is the end of the battle, if you're a supporter of Trump or the Make America Healthy Again movement, now that's just the first step, right? I mean, you're going to have to get things done in Congress. You're going to have to fight with some of these states. I mean, you're going to have to unravel a lot of this system. But let's say Harris wins, right? I don't think people are rioting in the streets if she truly wins the election. But what do? Do they continue to weaponize against all of their political opponents? Do they continue to marginalize any white dude who comes from a poor family, but because he's white, he's screwed in America? I think it's the policies that come with it. And I'm not a believer that if Harris wins, like I said, we're going to have World War III the next day. I think it will come. But I think it's about what happens. And I think what'll make some of the rhetoric on the left, or at least actual normal people that vote Democrat, is if we do tamper down these World War III conflicts around the world, if we do see gas prices come down, if people can pay their mortgage, if people can buy houses again. So I think the policies that come with it are going to decide just how quickly this escalates or hopefully de-escalates.
I think the Dems are getting desperate, and I think they're going to pull something. With Trump gaining this much traction in the poly market and the odds and people, I think they're going to panic. They're going to pull something, some sort of.
You mean like another assassination attempt? I mean, what else could we possibly do at this point?
Well, if you look online, some people don't even think it was a real assassination. They thought it was staged.
Which is hilarious because it's always like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And then like something happens. They're like, no, it's not. Like, come on. Like, at what point are we going to like call things what they are? Like, I don't even know. The whole like, with Biden being like mentally potentially not well, it's like, that's not true. And now it's like Trump's mentally unwell. It's like, oh, I'm so sick of the bullshit.
It's just
Biden put the Trump hat on though.
I know, which was so great. I feel like Biden is
secretly
like
wants Trump to win. They did him dirty. Joe, if you're watching, they did you dirty, buddy. They did you dirty.
Come out and do something.
Come out, support Make America Healthy Again. Let's change the food. Let's get all the ingredients that are banned in Europe. Let's get them cleaned up here. Bobby's coming in. We got Trump. We got Elon. Come on, Joe.
I don't think your sentiment is going to work here, as of course, throughout the duration of the show, I'm usually on Twitter, and we just got this video from Joe Biden that is talking about arresting Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
Here's the clip.
This is a guy who also wants to replace every civil servant, every single one. Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him.
What?
I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Politically lock him up, he says at the end.
Yeah.
I thought Kamala was doing all the press conferences.
Lock him up. And then politically.
Oh, God,
What do you guys make from that?
That
those
man
comments?
is your president, Luke.
I know. I forget, and then I see these things, and I'm like, oh dear God! I can't believe 81 million Americans ran to the polls to vote for this guy.